Modern bikes are tech-packed and refined, but 90s motorcycles were pure, untamed chaos. They broke rules, shredded tires, and terrified riders. Today, we're counting down 15 wild 90s machines that still outclass modern bikes. Don't miss number 1. It was so insane, it made legends and humbled everything that followed. Number 15, Honda XR600R/XR650L. This bike wasn't built for likes, it was built for wear. The Honda XR600R and its road-legal twin, the XR650L, are two-wheeled sledgehammers, still crushing modern bikes more than 30 years later. These machines were engineered to be unkillable. Air-cooled, single-cylinder engines, no liquid cooling, no fancy electronics, just raw mechanical grit. The XR's dry sump oil system and simple valve train mean you can thrash it across deserts, forests, or frozen tundras, and it'll still fire up, begging for more. Its steel frame, practically indestructible, designed to flex just enough under stress without ever cracking, something many high-tech bikes can't claim. And the suspension? Over 11 inches of long travel Showa fork and shock, soaking up terrain that would break modern enduros in half. The XR650L is still sold new in 2025. Why? Because nothing beats it. It's cheaper, tougher, and more versatile than bikes twice the price. Want to commute Monday and crush single-track Saturday? Done. The XR can do it all. With a 644cc thumper engine, disc brakes, electric start, and parts you can find in any corner of the world. It dominated Baja. It conquered GNCC. And it's still the go-to for riders who'd rather ride than reboot a touchscreen. It may not be pretty, but it doesn't need to be. The XR600R/XR650L wasn't designed to impress. It was built to endure. The XR didn't care about trends. It was built to take a beating and keep moving. But across the border, something very different was brewing. Lean, loud, and completely unhinged. KTM wasn't interested in playing it safe. They wanted to set the streets on fire. Number 14, the KTM 620 Duke. If the XR 650L was a tank, the 620 Duke E was a Molotov. Launched in 1994, the KTM 620 Duke was the world's first true street supermoto, and it came out swinging. Powered by a 609cc LC4 single-cylinder engine with about 50 horsepower, this thing didn't purr, it barked. You got all the mid-range punch, raw vibration, and backfire blasting attitude you'd expect from a dirt racer wearing road tires. It weighed just 145 kilos, meaning it was lighter, meaner, and more agile than nearly any modern naked in its class. Wide handlebars, tall stance. That flickable supermoto feel made it dance through corners and slide out of them. Why? Because it was built with enduro DNA. The 620 shared 80% of its chassis with KTM's off-road bikes, but was tuned to wreck the streets. The chrome moly steel frame was tough. The design was simple. No traction control, no ride modes, just you and the bike. It wasn't just fun, it was a problem. Throttle response was instant. Wheelies, easy, rear slides, constant. While modern bikes drown in rider aids, the 620 Duke stays unfiltered and unforgettable. And while today's KTMs are loaded with screens and sensors, the original Duke is a collector's weapon. Affordable to buy, easy to wrench, hard to forget, the 620 didn't just start a category, it started a fire. It was chaos incarnate. All rage and adrenaline packed into a featherweight frame. But just a few years earlier, Kawasaki had already fired a shot heard round the world, not with wheelies or slides, but with raw, blistering speed that no one could touch. This wasn't a stunt bike, it was a throne on wheels, and it ruled for 6 straight years. Number 13, Kawasaki ZX11 ZZR1100. For 6 years straight, this bike wore the crown. The Kawasaki ZX11, known as the ZZR1100 outside the US, wasn't just fast in the 90s, it was the fastest. With a 1,052cc inline-4 pumping out 147 horsepower and 81 pound-feet of torque, The ZX11 could smash 174 miles per hour, back when most bikes were still figuring out 140. 0 to 60, just 2.7 seconds. Quarter mile, 10.2 at nearly 135 miles per hour. That's still neck and neck with many of today's leader-class superbikes, more than 30 years later. But this wasn't just a speed freak, it was a technological game changer. The ZX11 introduced the world's first ram air system on a production motorcycle, force-feeding power at high speeds. Its aerodynamic fairing, aluminum twin-spar frame, and low-slung stance gave it laser-stable high-speed handling and real touring comfort. And unlike some high-strung modern bikes, the ZX11 was built to last. Its engine is famously understressed, with many examples crossing 100,000 miles, still on original internals. Weighing in at 577 pounds wet, it shouldn't handle well, but it does. Long-haul riders still praise its wind protection, smooth gearbox, and shockingly agile road manners. And here's the kicker. In 2025, you can snag one for under $4,000. That's pocket change for a machine that once held the world in its mirrors. Speed, comfort, legacy, durability. The ZX11 didn't just beat the 90s, it redefined what motorcycles could be. Okay, the ZX11 dominated with raw numbers, fastest, most powerful, king of the straights. But not every legend needed a crown. Some earned respect the quiet way, through balance, precision, and decades of trust. Honda was one of them. It didn't just build a fast bike, they built a legacy. Number 12, Honda VFR800F Interceptor. While other bikes chased headlines, the Honda VFR800Fi, launched in 1998, built a legacy. It wasn't the fastest or flashiest, but it quietly did everything right, and in 2025, it still does. Powered by a liquid-cooled 800cc V4, the Interceptor makes just over 100 horsepower and 75 Newton-meters of torque. But it's not about the numbers, it's how it delivers them. Smooth, torquey, and high revving when needed. Overtakes at 130 kilometers per hour, effortless. Fast sweepers, it lives for them. With Honda's ProLink suspension, a rock-solid chassis, and dual-channel ABS, the VFR handles like a sport bike but rides like a sport tourer. A 21-liter tank, comfortable ergos, and that unmistakable V4 soundtrack make long rides addictive. It's also one of the most reliable motorcycles ever built. Six-figure mileages are common with minimal drama. The build quality? Tank-like. Even in 2025, the VFR 800F SELLS, for less than many modern MID-DLE WEIGHTS, yet offers mechanical soul, not just screens and ride modes. Used examples are a goldmine for smart buyers. The VFR 800Fi didn't just survive the decades, it still embarrasses newer bikes in real-world riding. Smooth, fast, bulletproof. It proves that precision engineering and rider-focused design never go out of style. If this list is unlocking memories, blowing your mind, or just making you wish bikes still had soul, do us a favor. Hit that like button and subscribe. And trust me, the top bikes on this list, you haven't seen anything yet. The VFR was polished perfection, a bike that earned loyalty through logic, balance, and bulletproof design. But across the sea, Ducati had something very different in mind. No fairings, no fluff, just steel, torque, and soul. That gave it identity, and with that, it ignited the naked bike revolution. Number 11, Ducati Monster 900. Back in 1993, Ducati didn't just launch a new model, they created a movement. The original Monster 900 wasn't about chasing top speed or lap times. It was about raw, mechanical connection, a stripped-down street bike with just the essentials, torque, sound, and attitude. Powered by a 904cc air-cooled L-twin, making around 75 horsepower and 76 Newton-meters of torque, the Monster 900 doesn't try to overpower you, it invites you in. That torquey hits early and hard, giving it a visceral punch off the line and addictive roll-on power through the mid-range. The steel trellis frame, now iconic, gives it superb balance and rigidity without weight. Wide bars, upright ergos, and a compact chassis make it effortless in corners and tight urban flicks, where many modern bikes feel bloated and sanitized. And while today's machines are drowning in electronics, the Monster 900 stays pure. No ride modes, no traction control, just you and the machine. Dual 320mm Brembos keep it in check, while its 130 plus miles per hour top speed still puts it in the fight today. Used prices hover around $3,000 to $5,000, and unlike many classics, you'll want to ride it. It's also endlessly customizable, with an aftermarket as deep as its heritage. While modern nakeds chase horsepower wars and digital dashboards, the Monster 900 proves that personality, feel, and feedback still matter. Maybe now more than ever. The Monster 900 was all grunt, growl, and stripped-down swagger. A bike that thrived in the chaos of city streets. But on the racetrack, and in the minds of purists, there was another kind of beast, smaller, lighter, louder, built not for posing, but for precision. This was the bike that blurred the line between road and race, and made every ride feel like a qualifying lap. Number 10. Aprilia RS250. This wasn't a motorcycle, it was a missile in disguise. The Aprilia RS250 hit the streets like it just escaped the paddock, because it basically did. Born from Aprilia's GP 250 race program, this was a bike for people who didn't want to pretend. They wanted to win. At its core, a 249cc V-twin, two-stroke, borrowed and refined from Suzuki's RGV 250. But Aprilia worked its black magic. New heads, new electronics, a new soul. The result, 53 horsepower, 10,800 RPM, and a top speed of 123 miles per hour. That's superbike velocity in a featherweight frame. Speaking of which, the RS250's aluminum magnesium chassis, banana swing arm, and adjustable Showa and Sax suspension weren't just high spec, they were surgical. Combine that with Brembo brakes and sub 150 kilo dry weight, and you've got track day royalty. Modern 250cc four-strokes, they can't touch it. Too soft, too slow, too safe. The RS250 is raw, visceral, and completely illegal sounding. Even today, it destroys in corners, embarrasses on straights, and commands five-figure prices on the collector's market. It's more than a bike, it's a two-stroke fever dream that never ended. But what if you wanted torque instead of scream? What if you craved a bike that didn't just race, it brawled? Then just wait till you see what Triumph cooked up in '95. It's not a replica, it's the real thing, and it hits like a hammer. Number 9, Triumph Speed Triple T 309. Before street fighters were cool, before they were even a category, Triumph dropped the T309 like a pub brawl in leather. No fairings, no fluff, just a raw, triple-cylinder middle finger to the polished plastics of the 90s supersport scene. At its heart, an 885cc triple, pumping out 98 horses and a torque curve as broad as a British grin. But it wasn't just numbers, it was feel. A mechanical soul that pulsed through the bars, the seat, the pegs. Where modern bikes isolate you with electronics, the T309 hands you the keys and dares you to screw up. The chassis, a steel spine frame that handled like it had no right to. Sharp, predictable, and grounded. You could cane it through twisties or cruise through traffic. Either way, it stayed planted, confident, and just a little bit unhinged. What it didn't have was traction control, ride modes, or ABS. But that's the point. The Speed Triple was you versus the road, and that fight still feels better than anything modern tech can simulate. Today, it's a cult classic. Used prices hover around 6 to 12 grand, but the grins per dollar ratio, off the charts. This isn't just a relic, it's a blueprint. And even now, in the shadow of 180 horsepower rocket ships, the T309 still punches harder than most. It's the original hooligan, and it still hasn't calmed down. The T309 was bare-knuckle rebellion, a street brawler with nothing to prove and everything to punch. But back in Japan, Honda was working on something entirely different. Not chaos, not attitude, but control, precision, mastery over madness. That's why the RC45 didn't shout, it executed. This was discipline, cold, calculated, race-born and razor-sharp. The kind of bike that didn't just win, it engineered victory. Number 8. Honda RC45 RVF750. This isn't just another old race rep, this is the RC45, a two-wheeled scalpel forged in Honda's HRC lab and homologated for domination. Born in 1994 to compete in World Superbikes, the RC45 wasn't a marketing exercise. It was a factory-backed flex of pure engineering muscle. At its heart, a 749 cubic centimeter, liquid-cooled, gear-driven, double-overhead, camshaft V4 with electronic fuel injection. Sophisticated even by today's standards. European models made up to 118 horsepower stock, and with a few tweaks, US models could match that. But the real story was the power delivery. Linear, meaty, and addictively responsive. The chassis, a handcrafted aluminum perimeter frame, paired with a single-sided swing arm and track-bred geometry that still feels sharper than many modern bikes drowning in electronics. Its suspension feedback is uncannily precise, like it's wired to your spine. The RC45 carved its legend on the world stage. John Kaczynski and Carl Fogarty wrung victories out of it, cementing its place in racing history. With over 150 horsepower in race trim and a curb weight around 470 pounds, it wasn't just fast, it was ferocious. What modern superbikes boast in raw power and electronics, the RC45 matches with purity. No traction control, no rider modes, just you, the machine, and a mechanical connection so immediate it feels telepathic. Collectors know it. Well-kept RC45s now fetch over $38,000, and with only a few hundred ever made, they're only going up. The RC45 doesn't destroy modern bikes with spec sheets, it does it with soul, precision, and the kind of analog brilliance today's digital rockets just can't touch. The RC45 was a scalpel, rare, exotic, and engineered for elite hands. But what if you wanted something just as lethal, with more attitude, more aggression, and way more accessibility? Enter the Shred, Suzuki's street-legal sucker punch to the superbike elite. Number 7. Suzuki GSXR750 Shred. The Suzuki GSXR750 Shred didn't just enter the 90s, it crashed through the wall and rewrote the sport bike rulebook. This wasn't just another fast bike, it was a purpose-built, track-bred missile wrapped in fairings, designed for one thing: domination. SRAD stood for Suzuki Ram Air Direct, a system that shoved cold air into its high-revving, short-stroke inline-4, unleashing about 135 horsepower. Combine that with a wet weight under 440 pounds, and you got a 0 to 60 time under 3 seconds and a quarter mile in the 10.9. This wasn't speed, it was controlled detonation. The twin-spar alloy frame, fully adjustable suspension, and radical mass centralization made it razor-sharp in the corners, but never twitchy. It was flickable, stable, and balanced, thanks to geometry borrowed straight from superbike racing. And unlike modern machines wrapped in electronic training wheels, the SRAD kept it pure. No traction control, no ride modes, just raw, analog feedback that made your palms sweat and your heart race. Even now, the GSXR750 holds its own. Why? Because it's lighter than most modern bikes, brutally fast, easy to service, and still in production. For a reason. Suzuki hasn't changed it much in over a decade. They didn't need to. Prices for clean 96 to 99 models are climbing fast, usually around $4,000 to $6,000. But try finding a modern super sport that delivers this kind of connection for that money. Cycle World once called it the quickest production 750 we've ever tested. Riders today still say it's an absolute weapon in the right hands. Modern bikes may be smarter, but the SRAD is meaner, leaner, and refuses to be forgotten. It proved Suzuki could build a precision weapon, light, fast, and lethal in the twisties. But then Suzuki lost its mind, because in 1999, they didn't just build another superbike, they built a ballistic missile with handlebars. The GSXR sliced through racetracks. The Hayabusa, it shattered the sound barrier. Number 6. Suzuki Hayabusa. In 1999, Suzuki didn't just release a motorcycle, they unleashed a legend. The first-gen Hayabusa hit the streets like a jet at full afterburner, and didn't just beat the superbike class, it rewrote it. At its heart, a 1,299cc inline-4 that cranked out up to 175 horsepower and over 100 pound-feet of torque. That's not just fast, that's warp speed. The Gen 1 Hayabusa ripped past 189 miles per hour, with some tests clocking it just shy of 194. That wasn't just a number, it was a wake-up call. The Hayabusa got so fast it forced the entire industry into a gentleman's agreement to limit speed to 186 miles per hour. Let that sink in. The Hayabusa was so outrageous, they had to slow the world down. But here's the twist. It wasn't just a straight-line bullet. The Busa handled high speeds like a cruise missile, stable, smooth, and shockingly comfortable. It was a superbike that could tour, and it lasted. Quarter mile under 10 seconds. 0 to 60, 2.5 seconds. Longevity, hundreds of thousands of miles with barely a hiccup. Today, the Gen 1 Hayabusa isn't just a classic, it's a living legend. Clean examples are going up in value, and riders still argue it's more satisfying than modern tech-laden machines. The Hayabusa didn't just win the speed war, it ended it. But what if you wanted a bike that looked like it was designed by Da Vinci and rode like it came out of a dream? You're about to meet a machine that turned heads and broke hearts. Number 5. Ducati 916. If the Hayabusa was a sledgehammer, the Ducati 916 was a scalpel, wrapped in red silk and aimed at your soul. Introduced in 1994 and designed by the legendary Massimo Tamburini, the 916 didn't just dominate racetracks, it redefined what a superbike could be. With a 916cc liquid-cooled L-twin, pushing out around 109 horsepower and 66 lb-ft of torque, the 916 could hit a top speed near 167 miles per hour and run the quarter mile in 10.7 seconds. But this bike wasn't about spec sheets. It was about feel. The styling, iconic. Single-sided swing arm, underseat exhausts, razor-sharp lines. It looked fast-parked. The sound of that dry clutch and the raw bark of the L-twin made sure everyone knew what just passed them. Today, clean 916s can sell for $30,000 to $55,000 because this isn't just a motorcycle, it's rolling art. Few modern bikes offer its level of mechanical purity and emotion. The 916 proved that speed could be seductive, a masterpiece that danced, dazzled, and devoured corners in equal measure. But not every superbike wore designer bodywork or whispered in Italian. Some showed up with bigger fists, broader shoulders, and zero patience for pretense. Enter the ZX9R, Kawasaki's brutal answer to superbike excess. Faster than it had any right to be, smarter than people gave it credit for, and still savage, decades later. Number 4. Kawasaki Ninja ZX9R. If you thought modern superbikes had cornered the market, think again. The Kawasaki Ninja ZX9R from the late 1990s still destroys many newer bikes, not just in straight-line speed, but in rider connection, reliability, and pure value. This beast could sprint to 100 kph in roughly 2.8 seconds, blast the quarter mile in the low 10s at over 134 miles per hour, and hit top speeds between 172 and 176 miles per hour. That's still competitive with many modern 600cc machines and some bigger bikes too. Yet the ZX9R isn't bogged down by traction control, ride-by-wire, or weighty emissions gear. Instead, you get cable throttle, carburetors, and a chassis built for real-world riding, corner after corner, commute after commute. It earned the label Gentleman's Superbike for a reason: razor-sharp performance and all-day comfort. Simple to maintain, robust in reliability, and steadily gaining collector appeal, all without the depreciation of electronics-laden newcomers. At this point in the countdown, if speed is power, The ZX9R proves that analog thrills still beat digital hype. But in a quiet race shop in Japan, Honda was building something far more exotic. Not a road bike with race parts, but a race bike they let you register. The RC30 wasn't practical, it wasn't affordable, it was perfect. Number 3. Honda RC30 VFR750R. The Honda RC30 wasn't built for commuting, it was built for domination. Born as a homologation special for World Superbike, the RC30 wasn't just a road-legal race bike, it was a scalpel in a world of sledgehammers. At its heart, a 748cc 5.4 with gear-driven cams, titanium rods, and a 360-degree Big Bang firing order, delivering a raw, punchy 112 horsepower at 11,000 RPM. That's not just power, that's precision violence. It screamed to 153 miles per hour, hit the quarter mile in 11.8 seconds, and weighed just 185 kilograms dry, thanks to lightweight components and a single-sided swing arm, straight off Honda's endurance racers. Adjustable suspension, slipper clutch, and a close ratio 6-speed meant it handled like a dream and raced like a demon. Forget traction control, forget ride modes. The RC30 gave you pure mechanical feel, no filters, no fluff, just rider, machine, and total connection. And the legacy, untouchable. 2 World Superbike titles, multiple Isle of Man Tihi wins. It didn't just compete, it crushed. Today, you won't find one cheap. These bikes fetch $40,000 to $80,000 plus, and that's if you're lucky. It's worth more now than most modern superbikes brand new. Modern bikes might be faster on paper, but none deliver the RC30's soul, sound, and status. It's not just a motorcycle, it's a motorcycling monument. Riders worship it, collectors fight over it, and every superbike since owes it everything. The RC30 was rare, refined, a hand-built weapon for the racetrack. But by the late 1990s, the game was about to get violent. No more boutique race specials, no more compromises. One bike came in swinging with brute power, insane speed, and zero apologies. It didn't care about prestige. It came to take the throne, and it did. Number 2. Yamaha YZFR1. When the original R1 dropped in 1998, it didn't just shake up the superbike world, it rewrote the rules. Lightweight, powerful, and brutally fast. The R1 didn't evolve the class, it obliterated it. Under the tank sat a 998cc liquid-cooled inline-4 that pumped out 150 horsepower at 10,000 RPM, backed by 79 foot-pounds of torque and a dry weight of just 177 kilograms. That power-to-weight ratio? Off the charts. Even now, it rivals modern superbikes that cost twice as much. It launched from 0 to 60 in just 2.96 seconds. Quarter mile? 10.19 at over 131 miles per hour. Top speed? 170 miles per hour. No electronics, no launch control, just raw, unfiltered performance, straight to the pavement, and the handling, next level. The Delta Box aluminum frame, paired with fully adjustable suspension and top-tier brakes, gave it razor-sharp agility. It felt like a 600, but pulled like a leader bike. Riders were blown away by how compact, aggressive, and planted. It was in corners. No traction control, no ride modes, just you and the machine, the way it should be. The R1 also carved out racing wins wherever rules allowed, dominating in superstock and cementing its place in Yamaha's racing legacy. Today, clean first-gen R1s fetch anywhere from $4,000 to $11,000, with collectors chasing early red and white models. It's not just holding value, it's rising. Modern superbikes might be flashier, but the OG R1, it still hits harder. Lightweight, loud, lethal. It didn't follow trends, it set them. But for all the chaos the R1 unleashed, it wasn't the first to flip the script. Because before Yamaha dropped the hammer in '98, Honda lit the fuse. And number 1, the Honda CBR 900RR Fireblade. This is the one that changed everything. In 1992, Honda dropped a bomb on the superbike world. The CBR 900RR Fireblade, weighing just 185 kilograms, dry and packing 124 horsepower from its 893 cubic centimeter inline 4, it hit like a lighter bike, but moved like a 600. Before the Fireblade, superbikes were heavy, brutal machines. After it, they had to be fast and agile, because Honda just rewrote the formula. The Fireblade's secret? A lightweight aluminum chassis, razor-sharp geometry, and a compact engine layout. No traction control, no ride modes, just raw mechanical brilliance. Built with race-proven suspension, bulletproof reliability, and zero fluff. Even today, it holds its own. And then some. Modern superbikes might throw bigger numbers, but they're heavier, loaded with electronics, and often numbed by tech. The Fireblade? It talks back. Every rev, every corner, every shift. You feel everything. And collectors know it. Prices for clean 90s Fireblades now push $10,000 to $15,000. Plus, with demand only rising. One just sold in Australia for nearly $15K, and auction prices are climbing fast. Modern sport bikes are faster, on paper, but the original Fireblade destroys them where it counts. Feel, feedback, legacy.